Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
Cooking with the Higas! I'm Alex. I'm Danielle.
I'm good.
And we're the Higas! Okay, today we are going to be making a family recipe. It's a sweet and sour pork spare rib. Our Grandpa Higa used to make it.
Grandpa Higa's from Hawaii, so he just called it pakui.
We're not really sure what that means.
Maybe it's because it's got a little bit of Japanese ingredient.
Ooh. So it's a little bit of Hawaiian, a little bit of Japanese.
A little version, we're going to mix both the pineapples and the rakio to make it more of a diverse blend of Japanese and Chinese stuff.
Yes, yummy.
Yummy.
Woo! Let's do this. Ingredients that you're going to need. So we doubled the recipe, but I'll just say what it is for the original recipe. Spare ribs, 2 pounds. 1 clove of garlic, minced and shaved. Half a teaspoon of salt. Cup of sugar. Corn syrup, the light one, not high fructose. We're keeping it a little bit healthy. 1/4 of a cup. Apple cider vinegar. 1/4 of a cup of shoyu. Any brand works. Today we're using Aloha. 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, but today we're using potato starch. We just need something to thicken it up. Pineapple chunks, dole or generic. 2 bell peppers. The green peppers are cut up into 1-inch dices. 2 onions. Pickled scallions. Pickled everything is bomb.com. You ready to cook? Here we go. Ooh, nice face mask.
All right, so this is, you can get this at WWII. It's already sliced. Spare rib, approximately about 1 inch. We're going to first wash it. And now that we have it washed, we're going to go over and cut it. We're going to cut it into riblets. Don't get it mixed up with the Applebee riblets. The Applebee riblets are actually part of the backbone as opposed to ribs. We're going to cut them into, basically, you put your finger in here, you feel the separation of the muscle in the rib, and that's basically where you slice it.
It's your intercostal muscle.
I'm glad my daughter knows her anatomy. College education is a great thing.
How often would you eat this dish, Dad?
Not enough.
Who made it more, Grandma or Grandpa?
Grandpa. I think this dish actually migrated over from Hawaii with him. So my dad was born on the Big Island, and when he was a teenager, the family moved over to Honolulu. And during the war, he was in Hawaii. He graduated in 1944 from McKinley High School. Came over from the mainland in 1946 when he was drafted. I think it was 46 or even 45. I'm not even sure. The war was basically over. Initially went to join the MIS, military intelligence. Since he was a young kid, he didn't serve like a lot of the Niseis do. From Hawaii, basically made up the 100th Battalion, but he was in the occupational forces in the war. He was a Nisei.
Young savory. Did he come to Tacoma?
He eventually ended up somehow at Fort Lewis. That's about the extent of it. Unfortunately, my dad died at a young age. He was 57 years old.
You meet Grandma.
I think they met at a dance.
They call it a dance, but we call it a dance club. Disco disco.
They used to always talk about doing the jitterbug.
Danielle, do you know how to do the jitterbug? Hey.
They used to go down to the Black and Tan when they first got married. Wolf and Jackson.
What year was that when they got married?
1949.
Which makes sense. Grandma was always dancing at weddings.
Well, they liked to dance.
Maybe that's why we like to dance so much.
Grandma, and my mom was second of actually 8 kids, the Kosai family. And there was Yosh. My mom came second, name was Hatsumi. Uncle Bobo, somehow he got that nickname Bobo, but his name was Aizo. But his actual nickname amongst his peers was Buster. He was third.
Wait, Uncle Bobo's real name is Buster?
Aizo.
So you went by Buster?
Aizo, Buster, and Bobo.
That's confusing.
amazing.
Depends on where you worked. He was number 3. Uncle Frank was number 4, but Uncle Frank passed away at a very young age. I think he was 2 or 3 years old from basically the flu. Uncle Mass came after that, and Uncle Joe and Auntie Rachel. Fortunately, Auntie Rachel is still alive and she's doing well. The rest of the Kosai brothers and sisters have passed away. But we leave a legacy of a zillion children combined between the Higas and the Kosais. I think we've got about 50 cousins. My dad was second to the youngest of 8 kids from Hawaii. Therefore, it was kind of confusing because I actually have cousins about the same age as my parents, and I actually have second cousins that are older than me. So that's, that's pretty cool. But we really haven't seen too much of them because they're all in Hawaii.
Auntie Lily.
She's 91 years old, I believe. She's living
My Paauhau.
She's doing well. Oh. I cut all the pork, spare ribs, into about 1-inch chunks. First thing we do is flour them up a little bit.
First, you're going to go and turn the stove on to medium high.
About
7. We're going to put the pork in the bag. All-purpose flour goes in the bag.
I don't think I said that in my ingredients list, so don't forget your all-purpose flour.
Shake it.
Oh shoot, there's a hole.
Oh, I see it.
Put that in the bowl. Now, this is a little variation. You're going to sweeten your onions a little bit by caramelizing this oil.
Okay, we're going to brown the onions, caramelize it a little bit, get them sweet. About how long, Dad? Translucent. Gotcha.
You'll watch it.
He wants to step in so bad.
You're done. You're good.
Woo, fancy.
We're going to take them out and put them into another bowl. We'll just put it on the side. Okay. We'll add it later. Oh, Danielle, I'm going to give this to you now. A little bit more than that.
We're browning the meat.
Okay. The spare ribs.
The spare ribs.
All here is to brown it. Grandma was Hatsumi Higa. She was formerly Hatsumi Kosai before she got married. She was born in 1927. Lived in Tacoma prior to World War II. Almost all the Tacoma people, they went from their homes to Pinedale. And then from Pinedale, they ended up in Tule Lake. When there was a change, I guess there were some changes in terms of how people were being treated. They were transferred to Minidoka halfway through. I don't know the total history of when and what dates they moved. But it was a tough time for the family because my grandfather was picked up by the INS in March of 1942. He was incarcerated in Missoula, Montana, I believe, for about 8 months until almost November of 1943. Finally released and shipped off to the lake. The challenge was during that period when he was incarcerated, he was never charged with anything. However, he was in prison for a long period of time, so that was kind of sad. But that made it difficult for my mom. But fortunately, they had a lot of good friends from Tacoma, like the Oye family and more beaches, where they basically took care of each other like an extended family. So they looked after each other. And I remember reading the letter that Julianne Oye gave to me, a letter that was sent to her mother from camp, because Mrs. Oye was terribly pregnant and she was not sent off to camp with the rest of them until the baby was born. I remember reading the letter about make sure that you bring this, and that. It's cold here, and by the way, can you bring some underwear for Uncle Joel and Lester and Ivo and etc. No.
Yeah, and Caitlin Oye-kun works with me at Densho. We learned that our families know each other from Tacoma, which is really cool. I pretty much remember Grandma always cooking.
My mom was a pretty good cook.
Yeah.
Although my dad was actually a real good cook too.
Dad, you're not so bad yourself.
Yeah.
Well, I remember when I was young, coming home from grade school, and my dad was already over the stove by the time I got home. As soon as he had dinner basically prepared, then he went off to his second job.
What was his second job?
He was a janitor maintenance guy at an apartment on Queen Anne, the Victoria apartment.
And his first job,
His full-time job, he was a postal worker. And my dad was also a tailor, so he made extra money making clothes for people. Next thing, we put in the vinegar.
apple cider vinegar.
Also add the salt.
Salt. Garlic. We turned it down to medium and we're letting it steam for 10 minutes.
So Grandma never talked about camp.
Not really.
I don't feel like a lot of them would like to talk about camp.
Well, she talked about camp, but the only time she talked about camp is pretty much when we got older. When she started going to the reunions. And she really enjoyed these reunions. She went all the time.
Oh, really? How often did they have reunions?
They had reunions not only for camp, but they actually had high school reunions because she graduated from high school in 1944.
Oh, wow.
It's interesting. Yeah.
I found this at your house. I went on the Minidoka pilgrimage in 2005
Oh, cool.
as a scholarship recipient, and I found this journal with the family numbers, dates of departure, entry dates.
4587.
Grandma's was 4587.
My grandfather's was 4585.
Their family number is 19529, and so it's A, B, C, D, etc.
Wow, they were a
Alien
number.
Yep. And then we journaled each day. I wrote paper after interviewing Grandma, and then kind of just talked about the trip.
That's 15 years.
Yep. We did bus Pictionary on the bus ride there. I believe that took like 12 hours. Some friends who were on the trip. But yeah, when we came back, I interviewed Grandma again. This is the second time I interviewed her. This is in college. Grandma Hatsumi Kosai. She went to Pinedale Assembly Center and then Tule Lake and then Minidoka. She remembered that she was in Block 4 at Minidoka and she said Barracks 6E with a question mark. But basically, she was born in Tacoma, met his father, Grandpa Higa, in Seattle. Her parents were Waki and Gizo Kosai, and then her siblings were Yosh, Aizo, Masayoshi, Frank, Joe, and Reiko. Her hobbies before camp was embroidery and knitting. I totally forgot about that. Before camp, she was at Central Elementary and McCarver Junior High School in Tacoma, Washington. She left Tacoma to go to camp in May of 1942, and she was relocated more than once. Pinedale, then Tule Lake, then Minidoka. She remembers being transported by train. And then I asked her, did you have any idea where you were being taken, or were you worried? She said she had no idea. She was a young teenager who followed the family, and she didn't understand when she was told about it because she was too young, when she was 15 years old. She remembered that her brother Yosh was in high school at that time, and everybody else was in middle school or elementary. Her parents leased a hotel in Tacoma because they couldn't own property. She said her father also worked at a lumber mill. Our great-grandfather, Gizo Kosai, came to the United States in 1906 when he was a young child with his mother. And Grandma thinks that her mother, Waki, came to the United States in 1922.
Ji-chan was born in 1899.
Jeez.
And then I asked her, can you remember how your parents reacted after Pearl Harbor? And she said, shocked. Gizo was taken and arrested by the FBI, and he was a Japanese soldier, served in the Japanese army.
He was on the Japanese soldier club.
He was a Japanese soldier? Interesting. Yeah.
So the story about him, the reason why he was in the Japanese army is because when he went back to Japan with his mom to take back his father's ashes, he was, I believe, 17. He was drafted into the Japanese army. Since he came to the United States at such a young age, he couldn't read or write Japanese. He could speak Japanese, but he couldn't read or write. But the interesting story was they were trying to smuggle the family back out of Japan before he got picked up. But what they did was, this is the story. They were hiding him in different parts of Shigaken so that they can keep the Japanese army from finding him. But what they did was they arrested his mom, put her in jail until he came out. So he ended up serving in the Japanese army, I believe, what Uncle Yost told me was only like 6 to 8 months.
Very short.
Yeah, because he couldn't do anything because he couldn't read or write Japanese. He could speak Japanese, but not very well. So the only thing he got to do was help the cavalry or support the cavalry by cleaning horse stalls every day. So as soon as it was released, he came back to America.
What important values were taught by your parents or life lessons learned through your childhood?
This is grandma's.
And she said, it's important to be proud of yourself. No haji. Be faithful and proud of your heritage and do everything right.
What's Haji?
I don't know. Did the attitude of your parents change with camp life? Was adjusting to camp easy for your parents? Grandma said it was still frustrating because they were still young. Born in 1899, they're 42, 43, which is the time of her father's life. And then they were reunited with Mizo, their father, at Tule Lake in 1944.
Oh, shoot, he was gone for a couple of years.
Yeah.
I had mixed messages from my uncle. Basically said he was gone for a couple of years, and one of them said no, he was only gone for 8 months. So
No, he was definitely.
he was in prison.
Yeah. Yeah, and so it's interesting because when you look at the alien files, it's pretty much all of the FBI paperwork on your grandfather, and they refer to him as a parolee because he was arrested and detained. Yeah, so they monitored his whereabouts in Idaho after he was released. They made sure he was employed in Pocatello, I think it was. So he was followed around, and obviously there's some reports on his attitude, which I'm like, of course you would have attitude if you were detained for no reason. I don't blame him. Oh, Grandma talked about the block party and dancing as her favorite activities and things she was involved in. She still kept in touch with friends from Seattle. She was a bashful lady, she said. There's a video recording or audio recording of her saying she was shy, which was really hard for us to see.
It's been 10 minutes.
Okay.
Ooh.
Now you add the other ingredients.
Smells good.
So add the shoyu and sugar.
Show you sugar.
That's a lot of sugar. Put it all in there. Okay, mix it up. This is not like teriyaki. This is sweet and sour, so that's why the liquid is actually the vinegar and the shoyu, and then we have about the same amount of sugar.
Ooh, it smells really good. Smells good.
Wish all you guys can smell this right now.
Smell-o-vision. Adjusting the heat setting to medium. Is it Caro syrup, Aro syrup, or
Avocado syrup.
Kato syrup? Ooh, it's kind of pretty. Kato?
Avocado.
I love this spatula. It's from Japan. Bestie Kanako said it would change your life, and it has. Onions.
Caramelized earlier, right?
That we caramelized earlier. Bam, bam, bam. Turn up the heat so it simmers. All these ingredients will mix together and be one happy family.
All it's doing, so now you're getting all the happiness in it.
Looks pretty happy to me.
Pineapple chunks with juice. Everything's happier with pineapple.
Especially on your pizza. Ooh, you said turnip too?
Hi! Get it boiling.
You want it to dance.
Got him to dance.
So this recipe is originally from your parents, but also it's in the Seattle Between cookbook. Do you know what year that cookbook is from?
About 2000.
What's another recipe dish that Grandma would make that you liked or that you miss?
Mom actually did most of the cooking for like a family function.
Yeah.
Did most of the daily stuff.
Oh, okay. So she was kind of like the weekly dinner, weeknight dinner, and Grandma. Yeah, I remember Grandma doing a lot of stuff for parties and card games.
Yeah.
For weekly card games, she cooked a lot.
Made a lot, experimented with a lot of the different baking stuff, like her strawberry soda cake.
Strawberry soda cake.
Bomb.
Once it starts dancing, turn it down to medium to simmer. So it's gonna slow dance to the slow jams.
They could actually do a waltz. Take it down to about to medium low.
Now we're gonna take it down to a waltz, to medium low.
Slow jerky.
Play another slow jam. This time make a sweet slow dance, baby. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Now you need a half a cup of water.
Oh,
Dang, that's not the ingredient list.
half a cup of water, 4 tablespoons of potato starch or cornstarch.
Mix it well.
Looks like milk.
Lactose free. Gonna put it in.
Add it to happy dancing.
Oh, happy meat family.
Don't forget to make your. Go on.
You let it thicken
How long do we let this thicken for?
until it's thick.
That makes sense. When you add the rakkyo, you want to put it in at the very end, otherwise it'll get bitter, says Warren. First time making a sweet and sour spare rib was with Mari Sugiyama, but it was her mom's recipe, so it's kind of nice to learn different recipes.
Let this simmer for a while. Say let it simmer for about 10 minutes.
What is your greatest memory of your parents?
Well, I actually have a lot of them, but
Your favorite? The one that stands out in your mind the most? Like when you think of your parents, what do you think of?
as we got older, they were able to spend a lot more time in the social circle of the Sakaguchis, the Miyaharas, and the Matsumotos, Tanakas, and they really had good friends. It was pretty cool for my dad because he wasn't from the Northwest, and he enjoyed their company. They went on a lot of trips, but you know, one of the biggest things, my dad always stood up for us. He was always there. He was actually real quiet, and my biggest memory is when I was playing football in high school. You know, you get this security knowing that your dad's there, and he would always be standing at Memorial Stadium at the same place before the game while we're warming up, and I could look up there and he'd come straight from work, and I'd see him in his coveralls, and I could look up there, and I felt really good, and he was always supportive, and Mom was always at the games, and the games were in the evening, but the afternoon games, I remember my dad a lot. So, and when I got a chance to play football in college, I was down in Claremont, California, Pomona Pittsburgh, and my parents, they came down for a few games, but what I do remember is the day they dropped me off at freshman year at preseason practices, and we spent 3 days driving from Seattle to Los Angeles, spent a week with my Uncle Terry and Gardena, but then they all decided to all come to Claremont to drop me off, and I thought they were going to help me get settled, but they dropped me off at the athletic facility and took out my gear and put it in the foyer of the athletic facility. And once my coach and the coaching staff came out and met my parents, and they shook hands and say, "Yep, we'll take care of your son." My parents went out to Vegas with Uncle Terry.
That sounds familiar. You did that to me, but you just went back home.
It was good because they were able to live their lives and have a good time. Those are some fun memories, but I do remember just that they were there for my support all the way through college. It came down to a couple games a year. It was a good time. It made me feel real secure. By the way, they did that when I graduated. As soon as graduation ceremony was, we went out to dinner. They dropped me off at the dorm and said, "Okay, we'll see you at home." And they went out to Vegas again.
You know what the Hawaiians do call Vegas, though? The ninth island.
Hey, they had a good time. So we're at the end now. The pakui is basically stewed. The meat is stewed. We blended the onions with it.
Ooh.
Looks good. Sauce is thickened. The pineapples are dancing in there. So now it's time for you, Danielle, to add the green peppers.
Green peppers. Rakkyo.
Yeah.
Light bulbs.
You can turn off the heat.
Heat off. More flavor. Flavor town.
And if it's too thick, you just add water.
You like it thick, though.
That's it. Now it's ready to serve. The best flavor is actually with some white rice. And don't pour it over the white rice. Pour it next to it. Exo ono.
Cheers, guys.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm. Oh, man, so good. Thank you for joining us for Cooking with the Higas.
We hope you guys enjoyed that. If you try out the recipe, let us know how it turns out. Hopefully it's not going to be like a Pinterest fail.
But if it is, it's okay.
It all tastes good anyway. Wear your mask.
Be safe. Conversate with your family. I learned a lot about our family and our grandma and grandpa that I didn't know before. And it's really fun just to talk story, get to know everything, because there's a lot of life that happened in history before we were born.
Yeah. Let's not forget, these are two of my kids, missing Robert, about this tall, and their mother, Susie, about this tall.
Thanks so much.
Have a great day, you guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you later. Minced and shaved.
What's two?
Minced or, I know, but I'm doing the original, Danielle.
There we go. It's done. Pakui. Pakui. Pakui.
But how do you spell that?
If you Google it, it comes out with tortilla chips.
Or it says buckwheat.
How to get the perfect amount of. Hi, Sots.
Okay.
My fridge looks super cluttered.
Who cares?
Pakui.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
It's high fructose.
It's 0 grams of high
Oh.
fructose corn syrup, Danielle.
Do a little dance. Make a little dance.
Cooking with the Higas.
Do it again.
Thank you for joining us for Cooking with the Higas. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. My name is Danielle Higa.
Am I supposed to I'm supposed to introduce myself, right? So,
Yeah.
hi, I'm Warren Higa.
Oh, and this is Francis.
That's my son-in-law. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I hope people enjoyed the cooking show. It's kind of interesting, and one of the things I noticed is that I learned something from you guys, so that was pretty cool.
What did we teach you?
Well, no, there are things that I didn't know, and you
Oh.
you took notes from. Anyways, let's let people talk, or hopefully people have questions. But I really had a good time doing this, and I'm sitting here in my deck, and I hope everybody's doing their social service and staying home, wearing a mask, wash your hands, wash your face.
Yeah.
Keeping your
Don't
social.
touch your face.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about rewatching that video again was really fun. And I just wanted to kind of kick off this conversation with Dad, if you could share some of the values that were instilled by your parents. And I know that you've talked to us a lot about this, but I'm sure there are other people who might relate.
What kind
out
of
there.
values? Well, first of all, they always emphasized education. So doing your best in school perhaps was something that they emphasized. But I remember, I'm not sure, can't remember who said this. A Nisei lady came up to me after one of the meetings at Nisei Vets and says, "Oh, I remember your mom. And one thing that she always said, and I remember, is that she always emphasized to you is never bring shame to the family."
And
So-
now we know that's called Haji.
Haji, yeah. So that's very important. But
Mm.
the other thing is about, don't worry about my dad. This is probably more coming from my father more than anything else, that, there are a lot of things that happen to us. And, we hear the term shikataganai. And it's not a matter of, it's the English translation, it doesn't do it justice. Oftentimes we say it can't be done, almost like we give up and say, "Oh, woe is me." But it's not a matter of woe is me, is that you can't realistically and logically, you can't do anything about something that already happened yesterday, right?
Mm-hmm.
So don't dwell on it. Take note of it. Think about it a little bit and try to do it better the next time. So those things persevered itself into perhaps some of the bigger values of, even though you get knocked on your butt, get up and go do it again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in judo, we teach, doesn't matter how many times you get knocked down, it's just a matter how many times you get back up. And that helped me throughout my life, yeah.
I think that's really cool that you mentioned judo too, because you're still active while not right now because of COVID, but you're still active and you're teaching a lot of young kids. And I can't remember the age range of the kids, but it's really neat from my perspective to see you out there kind of also sharing these values with them and seeing, you know, how young and vulnerable they can be, especially at their ages, you know, practicing and learning new things, and it's physical, so it can be kind of scary at times. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy growing up, and the feedback that everybody receives, especially as a kid, has a dramatic and lasting effect. And one of the biggest things that we have to emphasize to the kids is judo is not a sport of stepping on the mat and knowing it immediately. It's a matter of practice and repetition and testing yourself continuously. And one of the things that when you see a kid that's struggling or having an emotional situation, you just say, hey, never give up on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And as a ball player, I learned that really young. And when I was teaching clinics or coaching teams, one of the things that we always emphasize across the staff is you never give up on a kid, because the most important thing is you got to teach the kids never to give up on themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So
this is another lesson from Warren Higa. Never give up on yourself, no matter how old you are or how young you are.
or how big you are or how small you are, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, as Japanese kids, we're not very big. And when you're playing football in college, you kind of stand out, not because you're standing above everybody. You're in the team picture and everybody's here. All of a sudden it comes down here and comes back.
Mm-hmm.
But you still got to stand up, and, you know, you may be 5'9" and maybe 180, 190. I eventually got to 205, but you got to play like you're 250. You know, you got to play strong, and those kind of things you learn. And thankfully, with the support of the Niseis when they were teaching us judo, is just get up. So
Yeah. So thinking about food again, Dad, who are some of the good cooks in our family now?
my sister, my
Auntie
wife,
Jeanette is the best.
yeah, and your mother's pretty good too, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And we all learn things from different members of the community. That, you know, there's the Niseis, but then you got our friends too, like Uncle Terry Takeuchi is such a good cook that he opened Terry's Kitchen in Bellevue, you know. So, and he wasn't a trained cook, but he just knew how to cook and he experimented. He had a passion for it. And he was doing real well.
Yeah. It's comfort food there.
Yeah.
Shout out to Terry's Kitchen. If you're in the Bellevue, Washington area, or you come in the future, visit Uncle Terry.
Yeah. Terry makes pakui. So, you know, for the longest time, I always thought this came from Hawaii because of the pineapples. But there are a lot of Niseis that made it. The Katonks made it a lot of pakui too. So maybe it actually originated here. I have no idea, and, you know, come to think about it.
Yeah, we definitely need to talk to a food historian someday.
Yeah. Yeah, but those, my aunt says to you, sometimes, you know, she refers to me as the Katonk nephew. But in Hawaii, you know, I remember a lot of the dishes that she made. Auntie Lillian could cook too.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Oh, Dad, we have some questions coming in.
Oh, we do?
Yeah. So Darren Wakasa, what's up, Darren in LA? How often do you make this dish? And if I remember correctly, Danielle, you said your mom has her own recipe of this dish. How do they differ? I mean, that was the first time I made it, to be honest. Dad, you were making it for grandma, right? Or mom's mom.
Yeah. So I did a lot of cooking, but I didn't do a lot of cooking. Your mom did most of the cooking, you know. I started cooking a lot more since I retired 2 years ago.
Yeah. So. Did mom make this dish too?
Yeah.
Was it different?
No, we had Dad's recipe on a piece of paper. Oh. Then we lost it, and I couldn't remember how much shoyu, vinegar, and sugar. And I I totally forgot about the Karo syrup. So,
Oh, okay. Good to know.
so
Another.
it was a matter of just, okay, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Put your
Mhm.
finger on it. Does it taste good? So, yeah.
Darren asked another question.
Mm.
Do you know if your great grandpa faced discrimination in the Japanese army since he
Oh,
didn't speak
oh,
or
yeah. But
write
this is,
Japanese?
I didn't really hear it from him because he passed away when I was 7. So, but my uncles, you'd always say, oh, yeah, it was a horrible experience. They didn't like him. He was basically alone the whole time and didn't have any, you don't have the camaraderie if if you're an outsider, right? So it's tough. He was happy to come back to America.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, you're just like caught between two worlds.
Yeah.
Oh, a question came in from Francis,
Francis.
my husband. Did cooking these meals with your kids, or cooking the meals, and then for me, did cooking the meals with you, Dad, conjure up any memories or feelings?
Oh, always does. I mean, when my dad passed away so long ago, but I still think of him every day. And I'm noticing that older I get, the more sentimental I'm getting, so yeah. But yeah, I mean, makes me, I'm actually very happy that I'm doing this because I'm spending time in the kitchen with my kids. So, and your brother Robert, he can cook on his own. He experiments all the time. So
He's a really good cook.
yeah, he used to
Yeah.
hang out with me in the kitchen a lot. Maybe it's the youngest child thing, but Ryan Shimizu, how come you don't cook the peppers for longer? Oh, by the time you serve it, they'll be nice and soft.
What's up, Ryan?
Yeah, and the
Mia was
rakia,
asking
if you
something
put the
too, Dad.
rakia in
Oh.
too early, then the rakia will kind of get bitter. So
Oh, that's right. I remember you mentioning that because we wanted to add it in earlier.
yeah.
Mia, she was like, did Warren and his family ever go back to Minidoka together? We have not.
No.
I went last summer just as a drive-through to Jackson Hole with Francis so he could see for the first time, but I was really hoping we could go on this trip this year.
Yeah, I mean, there are places that you want to go in life, and I traveled a lot in my business, and there are places that don't quite hit the bucket list, and going to a place where bad memories. I mean, you know me, I don't dwell too much on on the bad things that occur. We just try to figure out how do we move forward, and I know it's there. I'm not ignoring it. I don't know as much as I perhaps could. But I was really excited when you went because you got a chance to engage with people like Herb and even a lot of my friends that went on the same trip, like David Fukuhara and Paul Carosi. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really fun trip.
Yeah.
Back in that was what, 2005. So back in those days, we had flip phones. So I called Grandma from the flip phone, and I was like, "I'm here," and she's like, "Ugh."
Yeah. But
I saw tumbleweed.
Yeah.
Saw tumbleweed.
And I have admitted that I have zero desire to go to Montana. Because the first thing when I hear the word Montana, I think of my grandfather in prison. So, and he was never charged with it. He was never formally charged, but he was held and detained and never found guilty of any of those allegations, or for whatever reason the FBI, they gathered the information, but it's why go through that? We know where our friendly neighborhoods are, and sometimes it's best to, I have no desire to go there. Nothing there.
Yeah.
So
I can see that. I can see how that. Yeah.
It shouldn't hold you back from going yourself, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you,
It's a really good learning experience, but super hot. So I was shocked, like hearing Grandma talk about it. It was really, it was the heat just hits you in the face when you get there.
Yeah. But but people probably wondered, one reason why you saw how much work went into cooking that, and a lot of the dishes growing up, and we're this, working class family where dad had to work, come home and cook, and then put the cover on it and run to his second job. And my mom eventually started, he'd pick mom up on the way home from Nordstrom, and we'd all come home, and next thing you know, by the time I started getting a little bit older, come home, eat, get to judo by 7 o'clock, or get to Boy Scouts by 7 o'clock. Everything was at 7 o'clock. So we had to eat by the time my mom got off at 5, pick her up, get home, eat, and get back to either church or the dojo or someplace like that.
What kind of dishes do you remember eating before judo?
Oh, very light. Small bowl of rice and some okazu, and whether it's one of the favorites I always liked was Portuguese sausage and cabbage. And then when I get home from judo, I get a bowl of rice and sato shoyu wieners with eggs, scrambled eggs. So salt and sugar, sato shoyu. Salt means shoyu and sugar. It's like a little teriyaki, but my mom would put the hot dogs in, boil them up in that. So they have teriyaki type of style hot dogs with scrambled eggs.
That's what she would use for Spam too, for her Spam musubi.
Yeah. Spam was typically saved for a special day, Sunday morning. We'd have Spam and eggs for breakfast with some gohan.
Any recipes that you wish you had saved from your parents today?
Saved? I remember some of them, like buta tofu with napa, pork and tofu with Chinese cabbage.
Oh yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, buta tofu. Uncle Kanso would come over from Hawaii every couple of years, and he had this thing about going up to Calgary, but on his way back, he'd always spend a few days at our house, and he'd always ship a bunch of ingredients over from Hawaii and make laulau. Oh, I love laulau. That's one of the things Uncle Kanso used to make from Hawaii. Or sometimes he'd make a bunch and freeze and send a cooler over with frozen laulau. And we always got the frozen Portuguese sausage. And then back then they would send the frozen salmon over and stuff like that.
Oh, awesome.
They would occasionally send things like canned mackerel and things like that. There's some things we couldn't get back in the day, but now Wajimaya has gotten so big they have everything. So.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, definitely take all of that for granted.
Here's a question for you from Fuji Design. Danielle, since your dad seems to have been involved with sports all his life, did you or your siblings get involved in sports growing up?
Hi, Fuji Design. Yes, we were very active. I was more focused on ballet and dance growing up, and so I trained at Pacific Northwest Ballet from first grade, or was it kindergarten or first grade, and then till the end of high school. So I was focused on that, but I did 1 year of track, and then my sister was a basketball player, softball player. My brother tried pretty much every sport. He was super athletic.
Yeah.
Tennis. He tried football, baseball, t-ball, track. He pole vaulted. Yeah. So we were pretty active. And then later in life, did some snowboarding.
Yeah.
It was fun.
I didn't do any skiing until I was quite older. Skiing was pretty expensive for some of us, so. But they kept us busy.
Yeah.
Danielle, what did you gain from going to the pilgrimage? Darren Wakasa.
Well, Darren and I went to Tule Lake together.
Hmm.
2 years ago exactly. But oh gosh, going to Minidoka, I'm trying to remember. It was so long ago, but I really feel like I gained more of a sense of identity, I would say, because I was there with a lot of families and other descendants and survivors of the war experience. And for me, it really helped shape my understanding of the history just firsthand being there. And so it's kind of just grew a lot of relationships, and just on those trips, you really feel bonded to people closely through, what happened to our families there. So I would say that it was the key aspect of those pilgrimages are the relationships that you build along with the history.
Yeah. To play on that, Mia asked you a question. Did your family learn anything about your grandparents from researching their files that you didn't know before? I'm still learning. I don't know a lot of
Mhm.
them.
Yeah, those files, I was pretty shocked reading all of the information in there, and especially about your grandfather, Dad, great grandpa, Gizo, because not knowing their personalities beforehand, then you read, little like reports from an FBI agent, observing his behavior. Like that made me feel sad, but then I was also like, yeah, I would have major attitude if I were him. Like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So we're still learning. We still need to order a bunch of other paperwork files from archives. So
Yeah.
we should actually get on that. That's a good reminder.
Yeah, it's well, you actually shared a lot with me regarding the family since you've been working at Densho.
Mm-hmm.
And Densho has a lot of information. It's incredible that you and all the staff. Who is the key members of the staff that's doing all the research? Danielle.
Sorry, you cut out a little bit. All the research?
Yeah, who's doing all the research at Potential? The genealogy.
Oh shoot, Dad, I think your connection is going out a little bit. But so basically our staff is super small. We have Caitlin, who I mentioned in the video, Caitlin Oyakun. She oversees all of the archives. So if you go to the Densho Digital Repository and you look at a letter or a photograph, any family collection, that's Caitlin's team. Caitlin, Sarah, Micah, Kristen, and Dina, and everybody who works in the upstairs of our office building. And then we have our tech. And so that's the most important part, I would say, the technology. So like Jeff Froh, he's our deputy director. He oversees all of that. And Philip. And then we have a lot of historians on staff. So a lot of people watching this know Brian Nia, our content director, and he helps with the encyclopedia. That's still an ongoing project. And then we have Natasha Varner and Nina Wallace, who do communications, a lot of the writing, so a lot of the stuff that gets put out there. And then we have Naoko, who helped with the Japanese version of the website, and Dana, who helps with the oral histories, Virginia, who helps oversee all the oral histories, and then everybody knows Tom.
Yep.
So the team's continuing to grow.
Yeah.
That's just a snapshot of everybody.
I'm walking through the house. I'm getting more wine.
Yeah. Oh, question from Emily. Hey, Emily, what's up? What are some dishes that are served at JA gatherings in the Pacific Northwest that are different from California or Hawaii? That's a really good question.
I don't know.
I don't know. I would say that like a lot of these dishes, there's variations of dishes that have a lot of similarities and twists. Like, you know, especially for people who make spam musubi, they make it differently than how my grandma would make it, for example. Like whether you cook the spam with sauce or without, with shoyu and sugar or not, or you put the furikake in there. I don't know. That's a really good question. Emily, I will pay better attention next time to cook family parties and everybody's Instagram when they post stories.
You know, one of the things in Hawaii, though, I remember a lot more fish. I mean, they'd go out and get fish, whether it's the typical lomi lomi salmon or, you know, that stuff, or what are those little things? Those little hat-looking shells.
Abalone?
Oh, they had abalone too, but Uncle Chip used to go get fishing and bring back little fish that I never knew what they were, you know, and throw them on the hibachi and cook from there. Yeah, and so a lot of stuff was more of the fresh fish, lau lau, you know, the butterfish.
That sounds really good right now.
Yeah, that's something that it's not the same when it's over here. So, of course, the drinks are good.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, yeah. Something that we should have mentioned since we're talking about genealogy and all the research that Caitlin's been doing at Densho just to help me with my family research journey. Densho is putting on a genealogy series. It's a 10-part series, and this week is on the last week was on Files in Japan, but this week we have another one on Thursday, and I would say like all of the history, the experiences of our family, grandma in particular, and our community definitely influenced my path to work at Densho. I got involved with the Nisei Vets because of you, Dad, right? And we were there all the time, grew up there. And then that kind of sparked the interest into knowing what happened to our community. And then in college, Asian American Studies 101 at University of Washington, Gail Nomura taught that class fall quarter of my freshman year. And I was like, okay, this is the major I'm going to choose. And that was the first time I ever had Japanese American teachers.
Yeah. So those are the things that you learn, like those of us who are kotonks, right? It wasn't until I was about 15, 16 years old, I had no idea or any conversations about the Kenjinkais, right? Too much. I just knew that certain families would always go to the different New Year's parties and, oh yeah, they're from the Kenjinkai. I said, okay. Then you start learning about Shigaken, and at the same time that winter, that Christmas time, I was in Hawaii with my mom and dad. And my uncle leans over to me, he goes, I need to introduce you to a good Okinawan girl. I said, why an Okinawan girl? He goes, what, you don't know? You are Okinawan. And he looked at my dad, that look, you know, so. But, you know, so you start learning about Okinawan dishes, right? So I didn't pay any attention. I knew that the winter melon soup was good. I was developing a taste for bitter melon and side pork, you know, and things like that. But those are definite Okinawan dishes. My dad always had with his ochazu kid, tegu, which is the cuttlefish, but really spicy. But I think that's Korean. But, you know, the Okinawans had a little bit more, a lot of pork in the meals. But there's a lot more that I don't know. And then I'm actually glad that Alex took her little personal pilgrimage to find out where the Higa clan came from. She said she wasn't successful, but she actually had a good trip over there.
There's a lot about that side of the family that I know nothing about. So hopefully we can continue to do some more research and learn together.
Oh, Ryan. Oh, Pihi. Yeah, I had a brain seizure on that one. So
Yeah, same here.
so bring some, huh? So go back, bring some on. So
And Darren had a question about judo, Dad.
what about
How did you get involved with judo, and what do you feel like judo taught you, especially as a Japanese American?
That's a complex question. So how did I get involved? Actually, my older cousin, Wesley and Glenn Kosai, were taking judo, and that was largely influenced by Auntie Jun's brother-in-law, Matsu Sakagami. Matsu Sakagami, he's a legend, man. He was married to Auntie Jun's sister, but he was one of the best. And if you see any books written about judo in the Pacific Northwest, you will always see guys like Matsu Sakagami, Mr. Nakatsu, of course, Mr. Kato and Mr. Yamada, George Wilson, you don't hear not too many of us knew who these guys were, although we're always in the same circles, but these guys were bad. Mr. Kojima, Brad's dad, and they won the national championship, team championship, and they taught you there were lessons about discipline, how just to grind it, or if you need to, we thought we're being punished when we're doing mokso, right? Close your eyes and meditate, when you're a little kid, you can't keep, you're fidgety and you can't keep your eyes closed, or when you're kneeling, you haven't been conditioned to it. So, your legs are falling asleep, or they're starting to get painful and stuff, but you need to learn how to just suck it up and get through it, right? Get through the pain. Injuries, you learn real quick in judo that, you're going to get injured, but you also realize at the same time, you get injured, you also heal. So, I don't know how many bones I've broken in my life, but I always know that, I can still think, my head still works, and I still move my hands. It might be painful, but it always give it 6 weeks and you're good to go. So, loyalty.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest things you learn. But loyalty comes with experience and camaraderie, because you have to learn each other, learn yourself. Then you learn how to become a truer person, as opposed to, loyalty goes two ways. Other people's loyalty to you as well as your loyalty to them. And more importantly, your loyalty to yourself. So strong values.
Well, we're at our 3-minute warning.
Any burning
Your
questions?
cousin Marie is watching, and she said she really enjoyed cooking or watching us cook and learning more about our family. Yeah, this is conversations we should continue to have with each other, I guess over Zoom, but Zoom is better than nothing. We're pretty lucky.
Yeah, don't wait too long, because sometimes the questions you want to ask, you can't ask.
Dad, you might change your mind later, but we should all go on a pilgrimage in the future with the extended family. Because our extended family is huge, and we're all very close. So that'd be a really, really fun way to learn about the history together.
Yeah, and there's the side of your family, our family, that had to experience the war not being in camp. And that for a lot of them, that was as devastating as being in camp. You still face the crap in the streets, what they call conscious and unconscious bias against those. Japanese work hard, and they persevere through 7-day work. You know, the season isn't that long, so they get all the work done. And sometimes they work into the night and they work on the weekends. And, you know, you get tired of hearing that your barn's being vandalized, whether, you know, the Kosai dairy farms, their barns were burnt down 3 or 4 times, you know, by the Howleys. And, you know, then on the flip side, you got your mom's side who were vandalized because and criticized because they worked on Sundays and things like that. So
Yeah. Side note: Kosai Family Dairy Farms, where Emerald Downs racetrack are.
yes.
So if anybody's in the Washington State area, knows where that is.
100
There's a
acres,
big
something like that.
photo. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thanks. Shout out to Thomas Kurihara for watching, and David.
Yeah, Marie.
Everybody.
What's a Japa dog? Japa dog? Is that, what is
It's
that?
like the Japanese hot dogs.
Oh, shoot. I thought that was one of those comic things, Comic Cons or something. Japa dog. Okay.
Okay, boomer. Okay. This was super fun. Thanks, Darren. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Hope we can hang out again sometime soon and virtually, and continue to enjoy this great programming that the virtual pilgrimages are bringing to all of us in different communities across the country. Thanks, Dad. This